I'm gonna do this a bit off the cuff because I'm not very good at like post production stuff. Like I don't do video editing, and I just kind of like try to do it all in one take. And leave it at that. You're gonna have to forgive me for my speech impairment. Um, I am fighting a abscess, so yeah, that's fun. And I'm gonna try to keep this short as possible. But I also want to make this, I guess, officially my first podcast. Uh, what I want to do with this podcast is I want to talk about what's like to be homeless, what the misconceptions are about being homeless, and I am in that from my personal experience, I am not the rule, but more of the exception. And I'll get more into that and how that becomes more obvious. Um, so with the intro out of the way, gotta stop saying with the intro out of the way, let's get to things that I want to talk about. So about me, first off, I'm homeless. I am currently in Project Room Key, which is organized by LASA. It's COVID housing, but if you're not sick with the COVID, it's for people that are considered high risk, meaning that you have a immune uh, compromise, immunity compromise. So it's like things like diabetes, cancer, and a few other different health problems. You get put into right now a hotel, which is what I'm in right now. But how I got here, the short answer is house fire, wrongful eviction. Then the eviction unfortunately stays on your record for 8 to 10 years. So it makes it very difficult to find a landlord willing to take you because there's a blemish that says you've been evicted, and then obviously credit. And so in my state, which is California, yeah, it's rough. Uh, and credit sucks. My credit is unfortunately blown. Okay, like I can't do anything with it. But I've been fortunate enough that I have made friends where I can borrow money at times, and they they trust me on my word to pay it back. Um, so that's been a big help. But to explain a little bit of what I do to get by, obviously it's definitely not YouTube and it's definitely not Twitch streaming. um, I do labor ready. Basically, it used to be known as labor ready, but now they're called people ready, which is a temp agency that sets you up with work. It could be during the day or at night or graveyard, whatever. And most of the time, it's warehouse work. I try to put in for clerical, but sometimes you just don't get clerical. They try to reserve clerical for either. And this is my assumption, by the way. This is not a bash on the organization. I assume they try to save clerical for generally women or people with some sort of physical disability. So they try to reserve that unless it's a clerical slot that needs to be filled that day immediately type of deal. Then okay, they'll hand it off to someone who might not necessarily meet the qualifications that they would normally hand it off to. Like in not qualifications in terms of like, do you have the skill set to do clerical work? It's the who's available, but do we have other people who could use the work before this person type of deal? And then you get called in, and or not necessarily get called in. You might be given a schedule because it might be a like a week or 2 week thing, maybe 3 weeks, and you get called. Like, hey, this is where you show up. This is the time. This is who you talk to. Blah blah blah. And that's pretty much my way of living now. Unfortunately, because for me, I suffer with a few mental disabilities, which is I suffer with social anxiety disorder, or better known as social phobia. But to a very severe extent. It's difficult for me to interact with people without my body going into a fight or flight response, or basically adrenaline rush, where I feel like, hey, I got to get out of this situation, which leads to the agoraphobia, which is the fear of being any place or in any particular situation that, generally speaking, that past experience wasn't so pleasant, and it triggers my body to want to get out of that situation. So warehouse work is the only option, but again, it has to be more of a, like, it's just me. Like, you can tell me, like, in my situation, you can tell me how to do a job, and then just let me run it. Let me go off and go do it. Um, Outside of that, yeah. Because some days I do have the days where it's just like, and this is where unfortunately bipolar comes in. I'm just like, I can't do it. So with those two things in mind, it's very hard for me to keep a stable, like, 9 to 5 job where it's like, hey, you can go in every day, Monday through Friday, be done, right? Unfortunately, it doesn't work that way for me anyway. Um, oh, real quick, to prove that I'm in Project Roomkey, because Project Roomkey in California is designed to house the homeless highest at risk. So I guess this would be my only proof for now that I'm homeless. Is this piece of paper that I have that has LASA, which is the Los Angeles Homeless Service Authority, which in my opinion is a freaking joke, right? So I don't know if I can get that on camera. I'm gonna try. So as you can see, it says Project Roomkey, and if I go over here, you can see it's like LASA stamped. Okay. All right. Looks like the camera picked it up. So anyway, that's what that is. That's what I'm in right now. So the things I guess the things I want to talk about is what it's really like to be homeless. Well, where do I start really? Uh, 8 years for me anyway. For me and my partner. My partner is not here right now. Um, 8 years, long time. Think of it as urban camping, and literally that's what it is. You're just camping every day. Eventually, you get used to the sound of traffic. Like, you can literally just fall asleep, and it's just like no big deal. Your brain adjusts and adapts to the sound, and it just blocks it out. When you're tired, you're just gonna go to sleep. Like, no big deal, right? Uh, Another consistent problem you're gonna run into a lot is being harassed by the police. Like, you can't sleep here. Got to move along. Doesn't matter to them what time it is. It doesn't matter if it's midnight, 1 o'clock in the morning, 2 o'clock. Or it doesn't matter if your dog tired from being on your feet all day, you know, or moving heavy stuff that evening. They don't care. They really don't, which sucks. And I get it, but what's the big deal? It's the sidewalk. It's paid for by the taxpayer. But hey, you know, I guess homeless people are not taxpayers, right? And then you deal with the nut jobs that are out at night, you know, crackheads, fienders for something, I'm not saying they're necessarily crackheads. It's it's just that, I can't count. And it's not that I can't count. I just don't keep track of how many homeless. Well, I don't know if there were homeless people. I shouldn't say. Some of them look pretty homeless, but maybe that's just their. Maybe it's the drugs taking control or something. And they live somewhere. Because the reason why I say they weren't homeless because they weren't carrying a backpack. As you can see in the background, I have my backpack right there, and a few other bags put away like in the closet, things like that. Um, so when they don't have their backpack, I have to naturally assume that, oh, it's just some doofus who lives like in the block, like around the corner or something, and is just like figures, well, there's two homeless people here. Let me ask them if they know where to get some shit. And to me, that's just like totally messed up, right? And I've had knives pulled out on me, because, and this is broad daylight, by the way, for the knife story. But to give you the real quick uh version, the short version is because I wouldn't give them a cigarette. Pulls out a knife on me. He wasn't gonna use it. It wasn't a big deal. Um, there was a time where I've sat outside of Starbucks, literally just sat there, looking down. I have my phone, just looking down, right? Had my headphones on. You know, minding my own business. My partner went inside Starbucks to get us a drink, or get me a drink. I don't remember why we were there. And I was sitting between a Starbucks and Panda Express, minding my own business. I don't hear the officers because in help to control my anxiety, I wear very like almost soundproofing headphones, similar to the ones you would find at a gun range. They're called work tunes. But basically they block out a lot of noise, but they're Bluetooth, and you can listen to music through 'em. So so to hear somebody yelling at me is like impossible, right? But these officers didn't take that into consideration. Even though I'm wearing what looks like, headphones you would see in a gunfiring range, you would think, by observation that, oh, maybe those are those headphones, right? Or those, headphones where, you just can't hear anything. But no, it didn't dawn on them. So I look up and I see 5 guns drawn at me over mistaken identity, because that day somebody had robbed the pharmacy. I somehow fit the description, even though I'm sitting on like 2 duffel bags and a backpack, wearing headphones, you know, holding a phone. What? Okay, I've been through that. I've you there was another time where just laying down just to barely go to sleep. It was like I was on a weekend. I think it was like Sunday. It was Saturday going into Sunday. 2 dudes are just like pulling up casually, like no big deal, right? In a car, right? And they robbed the Metro PCS with guns and everything. Like they shot that door. And I'm just like praying to God, literally, that they don't decide to kill us because, maybe because we might have saw something or heard their voices or anything that would identify them, right? I mean, if anything, I wish they would have thrown me like at the time. I think the new phone was iPhone 10. I mean, if anything, they should have just thrown me a phone like, here you go. Don't say anything. A Robin Hood type of thing, right? Um, and then I would have taken it to GameStop and got like maybe like $400 or something. I don't know. This is wishful thinking at the time, because you got to keep in mind when you're sleeping on the streets, and this is all before COVID, by the way. When you're sleeping on the streets, you're pretty desperate just to get out of the cold. And at this time, it was winter. So desperation, things you normally wouldn't think about, the idea pops in your head like, what the hell? You guys could have thrown me at least like 2 iPhone 10s and a Samsung or whatever. All right. Sorry about that. This is part 2. I had to knock at the door. So I had to deal with it, unfortunately. So to get back to what I was saying, yeah, when you're desperate and you're in, sleeping out there in the cold with like three blankets, like meaning one blanket to put underneath you, two on top of you, and you're still getting cold because the cement's cold and like there's not much that can be done. Yeah, it's pretty bad. Yeah. Your mind will shift in and out of desperation, and it's like, fuck, right? Like, what can you do? And it sucks, really. It really does. And more or less, that's what it's like. Um, Otherwise, it's just getting by day by day. Like, you get lucky occasionally. Somebody will give you like $20, $40 here and there, and you know, understand that when they give you that money, they understand that some of that money is obviously going to laundry. Some of that money you might be saving it for a motel room for a night to be able to take a shower, things like that. Um, but where I choose to stay, I stay in an area I guess is a little bit more middle class area. Um, I don't stay anywhere near like downtown or um, Skid Row or any place where the majority of homeless people gather, and that's for my protection, or I should say our protection, and obviously for our safety. Like, you don't know what any other homeless person's desperations or why they're homeless or their backstory in general, right? You just don't know what their mindset is at. You don't know if they're suffering from like a drug withdrawal or they have some sort of mental instability. So we choose to stay away from a lot of it. We don't sleep in riverbeds because that's dangerous. Because that's I feel is isolation. So like if something did happen to one of us, that's dangerous. Um, we have pepper spray because can't carry weapons. Um, it's been used. More specifically, we carry Red Saber, which is supposedly they boast on Amazon that they supply like the sheriffs with this type of pepper spray. So it's like the same grade. According to other sheriffs, it's the same ones. It's the same company that makes theirs, but theirs are obviously the like big canisters, where ours is just a little itty bitty tiny canister, right? And it's kind of a weird piece of mind. Um, and it works pretty good as a deterrent. Like, when I've gotten people that are just like get confrontational over dumb things like a cigarette or like, hey, move along, like, don't burn out my spot, dude. Like, go find your own spot type of situation. It works pretty good as a deterrent. So there's that. The next thing I want to talk about is storage. Now, I'm a firm believer there's no need to be pushing a shopping cart. There's no need to be carrying like a bucket with your stuff in it. It's like, no, dude. Then this is just, I guess, a personal perspective for my own dignity. And it's like, no, I'm not gonna carry a bucket. I'm not gonna push a shopping cart. No, I'm gonna get a storage unit. Yeah, it's $100 a month, for 5x5, but holy, you know, moly, right? And it sucks. It's actually the rent's actually 85, but you got to get like the insurance or So it rounds it up to 100. And, so I only go there before they close to get my sleeping gear for the night, go yank it out, go make camp, crash for the night, come back the next morning, drop off all my camping gear basically. Well, it's not really camping gear. It's not like a tent or anything. It's just blankets, duffel bags. Drop all that stuff off, change clothes if I need to. Um, and just grab my backpack and I'm good for the day. Like I'm able to hit up libraries. I'm able to uh, recharge my cell phone. I'm able to recharge. I have portable batteries. Um, Charge my laptop. Things like that. Like I could do that. So that's an option for me. Um, yeah, it sucks. There's been times where it's like, why did I pay the 100? Why do I pay the $100? Right? Things like that. And anybody who gets county or in the state of California, anybody who gets state assistance or any kind of assistance from general relief, which is done through the Department of Social Services or DPSS for short, they give you cash aid and they give you food stamps. Obviously, all of these numbers will vary based on what your income is. So what I get could be different from someone else because they're either making more or making less than me, or they're not making anything at all. And I could say with absolute certainty that anybody who gets GR, which is general relief in California, can afford a storage unit. It may not be necessarily $100. They can go with a mom and pop and maybe get it for cheaper. Can afford the storage and afford a mailbox. A mailbox at the UPS store. Okay, you don't need multiple forms of ID. You need just one ID. And, obviously your social security card. Mailbox is like $18 a month. It's been a while since I've paid month by month. I ended up paying by the year, which is like $125 a year. So, yeah, granted, their cachet is going to be like, oh man, I don't have any more cash. Well, I mean, peace of mind. At least you have a storage in a mailbox where you can get mail and a storage unit where you can safely store your stuff, right? Like, then you have your food stamps, which now a lot of places now accept food stamps. There's no reason, but food stamps go pretty quick when you have two people. Okay, because more specifically because of me, because of being a type 2 diabetic, I'm supposed to have like 5 small meals a day instead of your typical like big 3. I'm supposed to have 5 a day, which sucks. Good luck getting that. Because I'm unfortunately Amazon Fresh does not deliver food to Amazon Locker. So eating out can get very expensive very fast, especially when you want a filling meal. And unfortunately, it's hard to not slip into where it's like, oh man, I just got my food stamps. Let's go to Denny's and order like $40 worth of food. $40 at Denny's is the equivalent of like 4 days worth of food at the bare minimum. Okay, I mean bare minimum. Like you're getting $1 items, $10 a day for food, bare minimum. Okay, like you're literally blowing 4 days worth of food on at Denny's. And it's hard not to slip into that, but I've done it. And, again, it's the whole like mindset of like, man, I'm not eating enough. Like I'm hungry. I'm tired of feeling hungry. Right. And it just sucks. Like it's rough because you're battling, the cold, and then you're trying to eat enough to keep energy up so the body can, try to keep itself warm, things like that. And it just gets really difficult. like it's dumb sometimes, because you would think, you know, oh food banks, right? Unfortunately, in the part of California that I'm in, okay, and being a type 2 diabetic, a lot of the food banks here have sugar, like just straight sugar. Like, oh, we have cookies. Okay. Oh, well, I can't eat that. That's not going to help me. Um, or they'll have a lot of sweet bread. Like, I'm just like, no, I can't eat that either. You know, or they'll have, obviously each person has their own like preference of canned food. No stuff I don't eat at all, like tuna. Like I just don't eat tuna. Like I can't even stand the smell of it. I don't mind getting it when I had cats. I don't mind getting it and opening it for them and letting them have it. But yeah, ugh. Or sardines. I mean, once in a blue moon, maybe you'll find a good, can of beans or something. Like you might get lucky. It sucks when they only have bread. And then here's the problem about too much bread is I had to go on a gluten-free diet for a bit because I was eating way too much bread. And just to say the outcome wasn't very pleasant when you eat too much bread. So I had to go on a gluten-free diet for a couple of months. And that wasn't fun because you want to talk about having to research everything that's gluten-free that you can buy at, like, let's say at a gas station, mini mart, or Walmart, or pharmacy with a little market, depending on, obviously where you're at. And, you know, you get tired of eventually eating that stuff and you just want like a hot meal, but you can't have a hot meal because guess what? Gluten. Like, what I mean by having hot meals, like Jack in the Box, McDonald's, Burger King, Wendy's, fast food places, unfortunately. And you have to learn how to kind of balance all that out while trying to remain healthy, kind of. But most of the time, I guess to give you a short rundown of basically how the food stamps are stretched. It's like in the morning between me and my partner, like because at the time, um, there's a mini mart here called 7-Eleven. You can get like two bananas for $1. So it's like two bananas and if the coffee was $1, a large coffee any size, $1. Or or um or you take in your soda cup and get a refill. Things like that. So like $3. That was breakfast. Lunch, probably $4. So it was like $4 was pushing it because like if the only place nearby was Jack in the Box at the very moment, then like two chicken sandwiches and that's it, right? Um, and then dinner we were lucky. Okay, so 7-Eleven sells it's like a pound burrito, and you split that between two people. That's it. That's your meal, along with a drink. That was another like $3, and then that's it. That's our three meals for the day, every day, day in and day out. That was the thing. And sometimes we had to skip a meal. So like most of the time we would probably end up skipping breakfast, or sometimes have breakfast but skip lunch. Um, and that really sucks because it's like, you got to function, right? And between working, warehouse and just trying to, how can I put this? Because of the activity of working warehouse and your metabolism going into like overdrive, it's very hard to eat something very filling enough that's going to tell the body like, "Hey, I'm good." Right? I've actually lost weight and continuously kept losing weight because of it. Like, I guess to give you a good example, I went from a 36 waist to a 32 and in no time flat. And I'm still technically losing weight. Now 32 barely fits me, which kind of sucks. And this is coming from a person who used to wear a size 42. Mind you, this was before I became homeless. I used to wear a size 42 in the waist. Now I'm down to 32 or less. But I think the 32 will be the lowest I'll ever go. I don't think I'll hit 30 because, bone, things like that. I don't think I'll ever get down to 30. Um, and I will admit, for being homeless as long as I have been, sometimes it's a little hard to accept that I've gone from looking like one way and now I totally look like another. And it's really hard for me to accept that. And so, like, I have a weird thing about accepting my appearance. And yeah, it's it's rough. Um, and then for last, what's really messed up about being in this situation is when you get the runaround. And what I mean by get the runaround, you have organizations like LASA, PATH, Salvation Army, that claim, help the homeless, right? I have been through nightmares with these organizations. Before COVID, Salvation Army wouldn't do anything. Sorry, we only help families with children or single parents with children. And I'm like, oh, so in order to get anywhere, to get off the street, to get into a low income apartment, I basically have to like go have a kid with some broad that I probably really don't care about just to get off the street because welfare is the only one that has motel vouchers if you're a family unit. Like, you don't understand. Like, okay, at first you understand, right? But after 8 years of being told that, you're like, really? And it's pretty messed up. I think the intake process should be first come, first serve. Okay. It shouldn't be based on who's in a more dire situation. Um, the acceptance to that is I would consider physically disabled people to take the highest of priorities. People that are wheelchair bound that have to use crutches or a physical disability to the point that they shouldn't be out here. Okay. Now, what's even more messed up, and here's the truth of it all, is I've encountered my fair share of homeless people who are permanently bound in wheelchairs because they have an amputated leg or both their legs are amputated. They have their backpack strapped to their wheelchair. I've heard them boast to me that, oh man, yeah, I just sit here in front of Starbucks all day and I make like $200 a day or just about that per day. And sometimes more, especially on the holidays, especially around Christmas time, especially around New Year's. And it's like, are you serious, dude? You have free resources that will like literally get you off the street and like nothing flat, get you into either a hospice care if you need it, um, or get you into your own place, like because of your disability. I mean, in a way, it seemed like they he was just taking advantage of like people, which to me is fucked up. Uh, sorry for the strong language, but it really is fucked up. You know, where he went after that. I would see him every day around noon, starting around noon. That's when he would start and go well into the evening. But the help was there for him immediately if he really wanted it. And that's the shit that just like pisses me off when I see that. Because it's like, oh my God, dude, you have an easy ticket off the street. You don't have to do this. You don't even have to be here. You don't have to be out here dealing with the elements. You don't have to be here. And that's the shit that pissed me off. You know, well, me and my partner, or as I like to call her, my traveling companion, because we were both evicted from the same home. So we were technically roommates. But I'm also not going to leave her like unable to fend for herself and things like that. So because we're not a family, we don't qualify for the whole like family aspect. So we only qualify as individuals. And because of that, we get kind of effed over. Um, we've gone through many organizations like Path, LASA, and a few smaller ones to try to get into housing, and it's really fucked. I mean, right now, my current plan to try to permanently get us off the street. The permanent plan right now is that I'm gonna try to see if we have enough to put a down payment on, like on a trailer or something, um, and go from there and see how low we can get the monthly payments. I was talking to a friend who lives somewhere else. Um, he was telling me that in New Jersey, more specifically New Jersey, before COVID, by the way, this was before COVID, that you can get a nice trailer. You can get nice trailer for between 20 to like 23 grand. I'm like, oh, that's not too bad, right? I figure you need maybe about 10% of that for a good down payment. Have the payments down to like something reasonable. So that's kind of the plan for right now. Unfortunately, my light went off. That's kind of the plan right now, is to see if we can do that. So thanks. So thanks to the COVID, the shining lining in all this is thanks to COVID, thanks to the stimulus package, right? Ooh, free money coming in. Money that, you know, we can use to bank away and say, okay, cool, we can buy a trailer. Obviously, moving from California to New Jersey is going to be kind of hard because with that little stuff as we do have right now in our storage locker, is all we have left. And Yeah, moving is going to be the hard part. We haven't quite figured out who we're going to get to like because I don't have a driver's license as embarrassing as that is to admit. Um, well, I kind of do and kind of don't. Let's put it like that. My license is unfortunately currently suspended due to unpaid uh, parking tickets. Well, can't pay those tickets. Well, homeless. So I mean, I can, but then that's like more money and then more delay. And right now, that's the least of my expense woes right now. Um, to put it in short, and so we're trying to figure out how we're going to get someone to drive like the U-Haul truck from, let's say, from California to New Jersey. Yeah, we have a friend that lives generally in that area that might be willing to come out here and then drive the truck all the way back, like drive the truck from California to New Jersey, but then he has to bring someone else to drive his car back. And logistically speaking, it's hard to figure out, or not hard to figure out, but hard to plan out. And then the cost for gas and time and like I mean, yeah, I would appreciate it definitely if we did it out of the kind of his heart, but I'm not gonna be like leaving him screwed over on gas. So that cuts into the whole. Well, that payment I would have had for as a nice down payment for the trailer is like now it's like, oh well, now it's even less because now I have to count in gas and the person's time and everybody's meals. So like the moving expense alone is expensive. So because California is just unfortunately too expensive to live. As much as I would like to stay in California because I was born and raised here. So I know California like the back of my hand pretty much in terms of both how laws work in terms of living and just laws in general. So, and knowing the area helps. So I'm not exactly keen on the whole moving to an unknown area, which I think would make it more difficult for me in, in terms of adjusting. Um, but yeah, that's where we're currently at. So the silver lining to the whole COVID thing, everyone's like, "Oh, well, what's $1,200 going to do for me? That's not going to pay my rent." Yeah, for those people who are not homeless, yeah, you're right. It's not going to pay your rent. For those of us who are homeless, though, it's giving us the foot up. Unfortunately, my only gripe with the care package is that there was a lot of homeless people that did not uh, put in for it, file for to get their checks because a lot of them probably didn't know at the time, public libraries weren't open. They didn't have cell phones. It wasn't exactly a huge push as far as I could tell from like any organization saying, "Hey, we can get you $1,200. You know, just come into our, our outreach team will come out with their laptop. You do what you need to do. We'll help you along the way, and you can get your $1,200." Um, and that's the other messed up part. You know, aside from families first, or what's even worse. Here I am going off on a tangent. Uh, and I'm losing focus of train of thought basically. Um, what's worse is that there's a lot of organizations that will help on Skid Row and other places. And the problem with that is you get the answer a lot of like, "Oh, sorry, you're out of our area." But your organization's supposed to be helping the homeless. Yeah, but you're out of our area. Okay. But I can come to you, but you're out of our area. But you're in LA County. Yeah, but we only serve this small section. I'm just like, You gotta be kidding me, right? It's very annoying. Very annoying. And it's rough to to accept that. And the other experience I've had with organizations is where they say they'll do something and then don't do it. Which I'll probably save that story for my next podcast, I guess if you want to call this, or vlog. Um, but yeah, it's rough. But if this gains, I don't want to say popularity or high viewership, um, if it gains some positive feedback, I'll definitely continue and share more of my experience and more stories of what I've had to deal with. Because I guess my end goal with this is to make the public more aware of what it's really like, of the nonsense you have to deal with if you end up homeless. The BS out here. Okay, it's ridiculous. Like, it's crazy. Actually, what I'll do is in down in the description, I will put some links linking you or linking anybody who cares to know more. Um, in regards of detailed experiences I've posted both on Reddit, on Twitter, things like that, explaining or at least showing, if anything, the nonsense that being homeless, what you have to deal with, just from day by day perspective, like the things you don't think about. And when once you've experienced them, you're just like, man, I remember the days I used to stress over my cell phone bill. You know, I mean, I actually miss those days actually. For as silly as that sounds, I miss stressing over the more what I would consider now the easier things to have stressed over. And today, it's ridiculous. And that's it, really. For this, I don't want to make it any much longer than what it needs to be. But if I gain enough positive feedback, I'll continue to talk more. Um, Go ahead and leave your questions down below if you have specific questions. I'll discuss them in the next. I want to call this a podcast, but I'll discuss them in the next video. I'll write them down. Things like that. If it gets too trolly or people just being stupid, basically, um, probably at some point I'll probably just stop doing this because due to my personal mental health, I have to keep my stress level as low as I can keep it and not get annoyed and just keep everything under control. So there's that. And that's it, really. I think that's all I have to say. Thank you for listening.